Welcome back to America Lifestyles. I am your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about how to really improve the quality of your life, and one of the things we like to focus on is making life better. And it's not only for ourselves personally, but for the things we're passionate about. One of our new contributors here, Shannon Register, does a phenomenal job at helping people get the home that they want and to, really make a wise decision when it comes to that type of thing. But she has her own personal things that she's very excited about and is supportive of, and it's a cause I'm very concerned about, which is making sure that we have absolute respect and gratitude for those who are willing to risk their lives for our country, those who have served in the armed forces. And so it's one of my projects. Typically during the holiday seasons, I have organizations that are helping veterans on as regular guests of my programs. And so I'm delighted that Shannon's brought a special guest for us here today. And Shannon, I want you to have the opportunity to introduce him.
Absolutely. I have retired Colonel Al Nahas with me today. This is a great American who's written about the Vietnam War memorials around the country and the men behind them. My husband, the co-founder of Register Real Estate Advisors, is a West Pointer like Al, and they're friends, and we believe this is a book that needs to be in the home of every veteran that your audience knows.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And so, first of all, let's start, first of all, the credentials of Al are very impressive. Graduated West Point in 1967, a class that did suffer great sacrifice. 29 of his classmates were killed in the line of duty in Vietnam alone. Who knows about future conflicts? And served for 26 years and retired as a colonel. And so we're delighted to have you with us. There's obvious reasons why you'd be compelled to do a book like this, but those same reasons are there for every other veteran. So there's something unique about your story and your experience that led you to actually taking this action. So what about it that made you feel like you needed to make a memorial in the form of pictures that were in a book that people could have on their coffee tables, which I think is phenomenal. It's great to have your New York architecture or your Disneyland visit, but I think, with a pile of books like that, it'd be very sound, very nice to have that kind of memorial there as well. Tell us a little bit of what compelled you.
Yeah, Kevin, it was actually in late 2001. I got an interest in Vietnam veteran memorials around the country. The memorial that's on the cover of the book, Warriors Remembered, is actually from Missoula, Montana. And I saw a picture of that memorial and said, I just need to go and visit that. So this project started as visiting Vietnam veteran memorials. But as I did that, I said, first of all, there was no list. Nobody knew where all these memorials were. And so as I started visiting, I would take photographs. I would record where the memorials were. My list now has over 1,000 memorials on it. But I really think there's probably 2,500 to 3,000 memorials around the country. That relate
just to Vietnam.
Just to Vietnam. Now,
and I bet almost all of them were made in the early 1980s or earlier.
That's exactly right.
You know why, right?
Yes. A lot of people don't remember the dissension in the country of the 70s.
Yeah.
And so Vietnam veterans, by and large, built their own memorials for their comrades. It was in the early 80s, as you mentioned, that the dedication of the wall in Washington occurred.
Yeah, but I bet most of those were made before then because there was a big debate as to whether or not they'd even get around to making the wall for veterans in Washington, D.C. That didn't happen as quickly as one would have assumed, and the further we get away from it, we don't even realize how controversial that entire project was during the time.
It was extremely controversial. It was the first war memorial on the National Mall. But truthfully, the wall itself stimulated about 80% of the memorials that I found.
Very good.
So about 20% were before the wall, but about 80% came after.
Interesting.
The other stimulating thing was the moving wall, which was the half-size replica that would tour the country, and that also stimulated a lot of folks to say, we need a memorial here in our own community to honor the veterans from our community.
Yeah.
So in my book, I have documented 100 stories with photographs of these memorials. There's at least one from every state. Most of the photographs I took myself. And the stories are really the compelling thing.
Yeah.
The photographs bring beauty to the book, but the stories of why Vietnam veterans chose to honor their own. That was the key thing.
Shannon, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I've heard the stories in this book, and it's just an unbelievable undertaking that Al's done. And at Register Real Estate Advisors, we're giving away this book to all of our clients that are closing from now through the end of the year. We wanted to do something special for Veterans Day that's coming up, and we think that this is a book that should be on everybody's coffee table. And if you want to pre-order it, you can go to warriorsremembered.com and go ahead and pre-order this book now for Christmas.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic idea, and I love the idea that, you got your Time magazines and you got your, major publications that do this kind of thing, but none of them can have the empathy or the heart or the understanding of that goes into every photo like someone like yourself who does this. And so I commend you for doing it. I commend you for being more than merely being stirred up about it, but actually taking action on it, because that takes a personal amount of courage of its own, a little different from the battlefield, but courageous nonetheless. So I commend you for it. I think it's a phenomenal project, and so I think my hat off to you. It's great.
Thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate it. And just for information, the book is 240 pages long. As I said, it's got 100 memorials. It's a hardcover book, and it will be out the middle of November. I'm looking for some copies in time for Veterans Day.
Absolutely. That's warriorsremembered.com, warriorsremembered.com, and I think it's just phenomenal that Register Real Estate Advisors are going to give that as a gift for people who, as they move into their home. I think that's just a fantastic idea, Shannon.
Being a former Army wife, I've moved around the country, and actually, Matt and I, when we bought our first house, he was deployed to Iraq, so I had to close it by myself. And, we don't have a lot of veterans closing loans and buying houses around the Houston area, but we do have some. And that's why I'm Texas Land Board certified, and we do a lot of VA loans because there are a lot of veterans out there that even the Vietnam generation, they are wanting to buy their luxury homes now. They want to buy second homes. They want to buy extra townhomes downtown. So, there are a lot of real estate investments going on right now with the veterans, and they can use those VA loans.
Yeah, no question about it. No question about it. I'm curious, Al, on the when it came to the memorial front, I'm sure you ended up doing some research on the Vietnam memorials versus the other wars in terms of memorials. Of course, there is not a single town in this country that has more than a few hundred people that doesn't have a World War II memorial somewhere, typically in front of a post office. It's obviously the most honored war in our history. But how does Vietnam War compare to other wars?
It's very interesting that in many cities and towns, like you said, particularly, for example, in Texas, almost every county seat has or had a World War I, World War II, Korea memorial outside their county seat. So many of them added a panel with the those that were lost from Vietnam. But for many state memorials, the opposite was almost true. The Vietnam veterans had the impetus, because no one else was saying thank you, to say thank you to their own comrades who had been lost and those that served. And many of the earlier wars, Korea and World War II particularly, came to the Vietnam veterans after they had built their memorial and said, will you help us build ours? Because they did not have the memorials for their war.
What happened with the Vietnam veterans to me was absolutely tragic. I mean, the way that they were treated was just unbelievable, that a nation like this, with its history, would even consider how they were so treated. And I think it's a great testimony of them on how they have rebounded. They've personally made a decision with the same kind of vigor and valor on the battlefield to change the way they're treated today. They took that ownership. And so I think that's commendable. And, I have a big heart for the Korean conflict because it's the most neglected conflict as a result. It's part of it. It's interesting. Almost everyone who served in Korea are part of that generation called the silent generation.
Right.
And they have been treated in the most silent sort of way. I always had a heart for those people. But I commend you again for what you've done. And I always encourage people, because Shannon Register's on the cutting edge of what's going on in real estate. You just got one more reason to contact her and learn more about what she does. There at her office is 281-288-3500. That's 288-3500, plus our website, very, very cutting edge, rrea.com, rrea.com. Thanks to both of you.
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you.
Great topic, very important. And looking forward to seeing this, warriorsremember.com, coming out hopefully by Veterans Day. We're looking forward to that. I'm Kevin Price. You're listening to America's Lifestyles on Talk 650, powered by CBS Radio.